NSO sucks. I know that is a very cold take, but I think it needs reiterating. Nintendo Switch Online has been widely disliked ever since its announcement at the Nintendo Switch presentation back in 2017, and the betrayal of Iwata's quote about how online gaming should never be a paid service is one of the first examples that a lot of people who grew up during older Nintendo generations will bring up to show how Iwata and maybe Reggie were comparatively much more respectful of Nintendo fans. But back to NSO, the service itself has done nothing over the past 7.5 years to quell any of the concerns people initially had about it. Only the staunchest Nintendo fanboys will even think about defending the service. But at the very least, it's only $20 a year. And then the expansion pack came around in 2021 and brought forth a lot more appealing benefits for people. If you wanted to go from paying $20 a year all the way to $50 a year. As time has gone on, more benefits have been added to the expansion pack that have made it a more appealing option, but keep in mind this content has all been drip-fed over the course of 4 years. As time has gone on and the service has continued to be flawed, I've thought that NSO was long overdue for a rework. And so, in this video, I wanted to propose my personal concept for an update to the Nintendo Switch Online system, directly created to address one of the biggest problems people have with it: its pricing. Before I present that though, I want to put a couple of disclaimers in beforehand. First, obviously the biggest issue is really the online not onlining sometimes, but this video is strictly about the pricing. I won't be talking about ways to improve the online infrastructure in this video, though it should obviously be happening, especially if we're paying to be able to play online. Second, I know there will be some ideas I have and people will probably still think this might be too high of an asking price still. My goal for this video was to come up with a realistic ideal for certain costs, based on my time of seeing what Nintendo will do sometimes, rather than a true ideal, if that makes sense. Lastly, this is just my personal idea, you may have a better one, and I'm open to thoughts in the comments down below, and also because it gives me free engagement. But anyways, onto my idea for an NSO rework. So for my idea, I was largely inspired by chain restaurants. Now I know what you're thinking, what do chain restaurants have to do with making NSO better? But let me cook, pun intended. You know how chain restaurants sometimes will have a part of their menu dedicated to creating your own dish? Like for example, how Olive Garden has a build your own pasta section. My idea is basically taking that concept and translating it into Nintendo Switch Online. I mean, why not just let people choose which benefits they want? For example, someone may want the N64 and GameCube games that come with the expansion pack, but not care about any of the other benefits, and pass on it because they don't want to pay an extra $30 a year just to be able to play those games. This build your own NSO plan idea would provide more flexibility, and more importantly, more control to consumers. Not only would this be a much more consumer friendly option, but I also think there will be a couple of things Nintendo gains from doing this. First thing for them is that I think it would be a bit of positive PR. Nintendo has recently not been so hot in that department, especially as it pertains to pricing, so I think doing this and providing consumers with the option to choose only the benefits they want so they don't have to pay extra for ones they won't use would be seen positively, even if I view it as kind of the bare minimum. Second, and maybe more importantly, is that it could provide some useful data for Nintendo. Imagine a ton of people pick the custom NSO option and decide to drop the Game Boy NSO app incentive. Nintendo can then look at that and change their approach with that app to make it more appealing to subscribers, whether it be decreasing its value for NSO or adding more content to it. Aside from the addition of the build your own NSO plan though, it also made me want to rework parts of NSO's pricing system. Firstly, I think that Nintendo should add a basic tier for NSO. This tier will provide you with the ability to play games online, access to NSO exclusive games, the in-game goodies that games provide for being an NSO subscriber, access to cloud saves, voice chat, etc., Nintendo Music, and access to the free trials, but would remove the ability to play NES and SNES games. This tier would be valued at roughly $10 a year for an individual membership, or $17.50 a year for a family plan. I know some might think this is too high for pretty much just the ability to play online, but this is realistically as low as I could ever see Nintendo go on NSO pricing. But yeah, this tier is for the people who really want only to play the online games, but don't want to pay extra because of the bonus incentives that come with the standard pack. It's probably not a large group of people, but I think for only $10 a year, that enough people, especially parents who might be investing in this for their kids, could be persuaded to subscribe at this price point that its existence would be valid. Secondly, I wanted to give a slight rework to the $20 a year tier, and my idea was to add the ability to play Game Boy games onto this tier. As good as some of the SNES, and even a couple of the NES games can be, I don't know how much of those alone would really move the needle for people to spend an extra $10 a year. So in order to sweeten the deal a bit, I think adding Game Boy games to this tier would be a good idea. This also helps make the math for the custom plan option work out in my mind, as with this addition, the Game Boy NSO app can now combine with the NES and SNES apps as a 3 for 10 deal. Along with that, not to be that guy who acts like lower graphic quality equals an automatically inferior game, but consider the non-diehard Nintendo fans. Products in the gaming industry succeed and fail based on how much of the non-diehard audience they can attract. The Wii to the Wii U is a textbook example of this. How many of the more casual Nintendo fans are really going to be excited for Game Boy games? The same also applies for NES and SNES games, so valuing them lower to provide more content for this tier I think makes sense if you want to try and get more people in at this price point, as opposed to the $10 basic tier. Lastly, outside of the loss of exclusivity of the Game Boy NSO app, there would be no major changes to the expansion pack at this time, except for a small caveat. As you know, the expansion pack now has the GameCube NSO app, but that's a Switch 2 exclusive. Despite this fact, the expansion pack still costs $50 a year if you're buying it without having a Switch 2 for that benefit. So I'd hope that there could be some way to acknowledge that if the NSO subscriber doesn't have a Switch 2, that their price for the expansion pack could be a little bit cheaper as compensation. As another small miscellaneous note, the cousin plans would not have the option to be converted into family plans, as I think Nintendo's rationale would be that it requires upwards of 8 different people to all agree on which benefits they want, and so they just want you to subscribe to one of the aforementioned tiers if you want a family plan. It's dumb, I know, but I think Nintendo would do this. And that's everything I wanted to say about my rework for Nintendo Switch Online in its current form, but I know that you may have questions about certain elephants in the room, and so I'll attempt to go over them here. Firstly, the Virtual Boy app should just be given to you if you get the accessory, with no NSO subscription required, because requiring paying for an accessory to access a benefit to a service you paid for is insane. At the absolute most, it should just come with the basic plan, because under no circumstance is this worth paying money for, especially for the ability to play Virtual Boy games. Secondly, how will this account for future potential additions to the NSO service, such as a potential DS NSO app and beyond? My personal answer is that the DS would be the limit as to where the $50 a year price point will go. In this case, some price shifting of other benefits would have to occur. First, the Genesis, N64, and GBA apps would be dropped from $5 in my custom plan down to a value of $4. This may not be wholly realistic, but I do think it's not only the best way to make the $50 a year tier still work with the custom plan option in mind, but I also think it's fair that as more benefits get added, the older ones become less valuable. Then, the benefits for game DLCs, GameCube games, and DS games would all be valued at $6 towards the $50 a year price point. Then again, maybe the DS would be the beginning of a new tier for NSO that sees an uptick to like $60 or $70 a year, and the stretching to make $50 work is pointless. But anyways, that's all I have to say. I'd like to hear your thoughts on any potential ideas you have regarding improvements to NSO. Thanks for watching.